Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Kraft. Welcome to my channel. My website is stephaniecraft.com. In this video today, I want to talk about TRE, trauma releasing exercises, also known as tension and trauma releasing exercises. So this is a modality that is so amazing, and it's a way to release tension, trauma, stress from your body. So there's this, there's a doctor, Dr. David Berselli, who is the developer of TRE. And when he was in Africa doing some kind of work, some kind of service work, there was a war going on at the time, and he was inside a room with people, and every time a bomb went off outside, everybody would like have this reflex, an instinct to get into the fetal position, or like contract into like a ball, contract forward. And he realized that it's the psoas muscles that are causing the person to contract forward. Psoas is spelled P-S-O-A-S, P-S-O-A-S, the psoas muscles. These muscles run from the vertebrae down deep through the pelvis, inside the core, into the down and connect to the femur, which is the thigh bones. So they're the only muscles that connect from the top part of the body, the torso and pelvis, into the legs. And so you can look it up, like a picture of them. They're like a large group of muscles that connect the top part of the body with the lower part of the body. They run through the pelvis, like I said, attached from the vertebrae down to the femur. And all of our trauma is held in the psoas muscles. And this is known. And when he witnessed that, when he had that observation of everyone contracting like that from in a moment of shock and fear, he came up with a method to help release the psoas, and thus allowing our nervous system to then release trauma. This is one of the most amazing things I have ever done, and I highly recommend it, which is why I'm making the video. I want everyone to know about it. I took a TRE class in December 2019, and then I registered for training to become a TRE practitioner, but it's canceled because of this pandemic. It's postponed, part of it's canceled. It's a long story, but I don't know if I'm going to end up getting training in it. But I've told everybody that would listen to me over the past several months about TRE. So if you go to my website, stephaniecraft.com, there's a TRE page. You have to, on the top menu bar, click on More, and then there's a drop-down menu, and you'll find it there, TRE. And when you go to that page, there are two videos that I highly recommend. One is a lecture, an explanation of TRE, a demo, and it's very informative. The other video is a woman walking you through the TRE exercises, and you can do it along with her, or you can pay somebody, take a class, or do a private individual TRE exercises, a session. I took it with somebody local. There were 3 classes of 2 hours each, consecutive weeks in a row. And let me just explain a little bit about the body and how we store trauma. I want to talk first a little bit about animals in the wild. When an animal is preyed upon, let's say like a big, an animal, any animal, one of the attackers comes, the animal fights and runs away and escapes. The animal that has escaped that trauma shakes out of control. You might have seen this, you might know about this. They jump around and shake involuntarily. What they're doing is their body is releasing stress hormones that have built up from that threat. If the animal doesn't shake it out, it dies. So we're really not that different. We have the shaking reflex. Everybody's experienced this before. If you have been through a trauma, you may find your body shaking, but we are able to override that. Like, we don't want people to see us shaking, so we can shut it down. I made a video several years ago discussing my experience with this, but probably most people who watch my channel right now probably haven't watched that video. In that video, I talk about when I was 22 years old in a foreign country. I was woken up in the middle of the night in the middle of a fire. I was sleeping. The woman came into my room and yelled, "Fire." And because I was sleeping, I was sort of dreaming about it, like she was just yelling fire. And then I finally woke up and I was like, wait, was that a dream or was that real? So I jumped out of bed and came out into the hall and I was like, did you just yell fire? And she was like on the phone, hysterical, screaming. And she was like, yeah, fire. Anyway, I ran over anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole story. I tell it in another video. Here's my point. I had to escape. When I was escaping, I was going downstairs and my whole body was shaking out of control, so much so, even my legs, that I could barely walk down the stairs. It was very notable how I was shaking. And I got to the street and I thought I was gonna die. So I couldn't believe it that I was alive. I was like in shock that I lived. And all of that shaking just went encapsulated into my body, like it stopped. And, a few years ago, I was in a hypnotherapy training class, and I didn't expect to go into all this in this video, but it's important. I mean, it's worth it because it's such an interesting, connected story. So in that hypnotherapy training course, we practiced on each other, right? So it was my turn to go under hypnosis, and I told the hypnotherapist student, why don't we go try to find out what this pain in my left ear is? I've had pain in my left ear for, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 years. I don't even know when it started, but let's investigate it. So under hypnosis, she said, go to the origin of this pain. And it was blackness, I couldn't see anything. But I went there, I already started emoting. I already started to feel like a rush of panic and fear. And I didn't even know what scene I was going to or anything. But I could already feel the terror. And then all of a sudden, boom, I landed back in the scene when the lady yelled fire and woke me up in the middle of the night. And she came in here on, on the left side and yelled that into my ear. Not like yelled it. Anyway, she was at the door yelling it into my room. And so I relived that scene of the escape. It's longer than I've described. I had to do different things to get out before I got out. And when I was reliving that under hypnosis, my body was shaking all over, like different parts, and vibrating. And I was crying, and I was reliving the scene and like going through it, like I think I'm gonna die, and it was very dramatic. So that session went on for a while because I needed to release all of it. But she was kind of scared because she was a newer student. This was a master hypnotherapy course. I had already been a hypnotherapist for many years, and I knew the technique of going from the beginning of a traumatic scene all the way through it to the end, and then repeating that as many times as is needed until you feel no more trauma, until you feel completely neutral. So I kind of took it upon myself to be like, I'm going back to the beginning, because she didn't really know. Like, she was a little bit nervous about how strongly I was reacting with my crying and my whole body like shaking. But my body, why my body was doing that was because when I was 22 and I got out, and my body had been shaking so much, and I got to the street, it stopped. Maybe I've made it stop, or maybe I was just in shock that I lived. But it was stored in my body. I didn't know that until I was in this session and landed back in the scene. So finally, my body was given permission to be back in that traumatic scene and then release the trauma from my cells, from my body that had been stored. We hold all trauma in our body. I think that's what my video is called from several years ago. We hold trauma in our bodies. That's the name of the video, which I tell these same stories in it. Except I'm going to get to the TRE point, but all of it's important to understand why TRE is so magnificent and wonderful, and why everybody should do it. So I did that in the session. I went to the beginning of the scene, relived it, my body's shaking, vibrating, crying again and again and again and again. And I guess there was just so much stuck in there that I needed to do it several times before it was all released. And I could feel it in the different parts of my body, like shaking and vibrating as it was releasing. Well, at a certain point, the student, she kept calling the teacher, like, she's not stopping, because I knew what I was doing, and I wanted to get it out of my body, but it was making her nervous. And so, because I actually wasn't used to, working with clients. I'm used to the work that I've been doing all these years is with major, major trauma, and I'm perfectly comfortable sitting with somebody going through releasing massive trauma. I'm used to it. Okay. But she called the teacher, and finally the teacher said, Stephanie, class is ending. We're going to have to bring you back. And I was really mad because I could still feel it in my legs. Like, I could feel where the trauma was releasing from my body, and I could still feel some left. And I was so mad. I didn't show them that I was mad, but I was like, whoa, this is my opportunity to get this out of my body. I didn't even know it was stored all these years, and now I'm being told to stop in the middle of it. Not in the middle, but near the end. And I was just like really mad, because it isn't that easy to access the trauma in the body. That's why TRE is so good, and I'll tell you all about it. So I went home, and I told myself, to my soul, I said, all right, this releasing started while I'm sleeping. Please finish the rest. Allow my body to release the rest of this trauma that is ready to be released from my body. So I would wake up with that vibrating, shaking. Like I woke up the next morning with it happening. So my asking helped because it was right there at the surface, of my body ready to come out. I'm not saying that would work for everybody. I mean, that's just a unique situation. Okay, let's talk about TRE. So TRE is all about this. Every single thing that we have ever experienced that has been a shock or fear or panic, anxiety, stress, trauma, has been stored in our body. And we don't, as a world or as a society, we do not even know how to release that from the body for the most part. It's not like a thing that everybody knows. Well, TRE, when David Berceli created it, what he did was he developed, there are 7, but I'm going to start with 6 exercises that fatigue the different muscle groups in your body. So your teacher, or if you're watching it along with a video, will guide you through exercises. You're going to need a timer, like it's usually on your cell phone. Just hit clock and go to the timer to time yourself, and you're going to bring certain muscle groups to fatigue. It's not that hard. It's not like hard exercise, but then when you get to the 7th exercise, that's lying down on the floor to fatigue the psoas muscles, what happens then is that you have then activated the psoas muscles through doing the exercises to the point where the nervous system is now able to release the trauma from the psoas muscles. We hold our trauma in our psoas. You're lying on the floor. You have your knees up, so your feet are flat on the floor. You're lying on your back. This is the position for the releasing to begin once you have gone through all the exercises. Once you're in that position, what starts to happen is tremoring. It's like the psoas muscles, like in the groin area, in the pelvis, in the top of the legs, thighs, that part of your body starts to tremor, like out of control. You'll feel a little tremoring going on in there, in the pelvis, tremoring. This is your autonomic nervous system involuntarily releasing. This is excellent. So that's what you want to get to when you do TRE. If you're not getting to the tremoring, you can do more of the exercises, but basically this should be enough. What he developed should be enough to fatigue the muscles to get you to that point. And also, once you've done it, you may not need to do all 7 completely of the exercises to get to the tremoring. You will see with your body, you may need to do half. You only may need to do the last psoas muscle fatiguing at the end to get there. It's going to be up to your body how much of these exercises you're going to need each time you do it. But you have to start with the full set the first time to get there. Okay, so in my class, when I did this, I took a class with a woman who's local, and there was like one other person in the class. When you're doing TRE, it is a mechanical release. It has nothing to do with your mind. It's not like a mental thing where you're thinking about anything traumatic. You're doing the exercises, you're lying down, you're not trying to think of anything traumatic or stressful or at all. You're really relaxing your mind. This is a physical releasing. Now, what can happen, there can be an emotional release. And you'll see that the guy in the video, this TRE has been used around the world. It's more popular in like around the world compared to the United States, because David Berceli has been doing it with the military a lot. It's it's been done a lot with military, and the guy in the video is a Navy SEAL. And I think he had an emotional release during, you'll see it in the video, like from like a bomb that went off, and then he got to do the releasing. Anyway, in my case, in the first class, first time I ever did TRE, I had the most massive releasing. I've had a lot of trauma in my life. I have had like immense amounts of emotional, physical trauma. And so I had some people in the first time you ever do it, just have that bit of tremoring in the upper thigh, groin, pelvis area where the psoas muscles are. They'll be shaking a little bit. But in my case, that happened, and then I had like full body, massive like convulsions and shaking and vibrating and releasing, like shaking, vibrating. It was just big. It was like massive. And then at the end, and it wasn't emotional, there's no emotional, I shouldn't say that. Most of the time you're not reliving any kind of trauma. I didn't have anything in my mind. When my body was doing all of that, it wasn't connected to any memory. Okay, it's physical. But at the end, I did have a massive emotional release, like uncontrollable sobbing. And I knew what it was about at that time. So then I asked the teacher, like, is it normal what my body did? And she was like, no. So it's not common. I don't think she'd ever seen it, but I'm just saying, like, my body was primed for that because I've already done so many things, releasing and shaking and energetic events, that my body was ready to let go of so much trauma in that first time. It is not common. You might just have that little tremoring going on. Every time you do it, it's different. And then we had another class, and mine was much milder that second time. No emotional release at all, just the tremoring. And then the third too, same, mild and not major. And then you're supposed to do it at home, right? Like you learn it, you take a class, or you learn it to then be able to do it on a regular basis. Because we've stored, I think I need a little water. Because we've stored the trauma from our whole lives in our body. So it's not going to just take one time. Should be a practice that you do. And then I would do it at home sometimes. And still, after that class, I also don't think this is common, but I'm just going to share my personal experience. After the first class, I was continuing to tremor and vibrate and shake and convulse or whatever without doing TRE, like just lying down in my bed, and it would just happen, or a lot. And I asked the teacher too if like that ever happens. She's not really heard about that. But my body was releasing a lot. And then it stopped after like a few weeks. I don't know if it was a few weeks, a couple of weeks or so. But really interesting things have happened in other TRE sessions that I've done by myself. Just like, okay, so for example, I dislocated my shoulder when I was 14. And in one of my TRE sessions, it was just like only my shoulder was going, just out of control, like vibrating, shaking, tremoring. And I was like, oh, wow, it's releasing the trauma from that. Everything is held in the body. And this is an indicator of that. By doing it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that was from that. Oh, like independent parts of your body, you're going to like shake it out, and you'll probably know what it's about. I think that's everything. I just want to share TRE with the whole world. And I thought I was going to be teaching it, but I don't even know if I'm going to like sign up for that training again now that I'm not doing it. Um, because I'm not it's a huge undertaking. But if I want to share TRE with the world, what I'm thinking about is inviting a TRE practitioner to do work together with me with groups so that we can teach, so that it can be taught to people. I just want to be involved in it. I want to share it. I want to expose people to it. I want people to do it. It's so important. I should do it more too, just because it's not easy to like get into the habit of doing something like that regularly. But I highly recommend it. Check out my TRE page on my website, stephaniecraft.com. You can do it right away with the video. You don't have to pay anybody. I have done it with people, like I've taught it, but I'm not certified and I don't put that out there because I don't want to like step on any toes. But you don't really need me to teach you. You can check out the video. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. It's one of the greatest tools I have ever encountered. By the way, after I did it the first time, I felt, and this was an ongoing feeling for like days and weeks, maybe forever until now, calmer than I had ever felt in my life. Calmer, relaxed, at peace. Like, because I got all that trauma out of my body, it was a brand new feeling of deep, deep calm. And I highly recommend it for that reason, because it's brings like deep calming and peace and healing. Because if we're holding trauma in our body, it's causing problems, whether we know it or not. Yeah. So do it, do your TRE, and let me know how it goes. Okay, everybody, talk to you soon. Bye.